am an artist and a writer and teacher based in Melbourne. I'm primarily a painter. So I use a lot of images, found images in my work from quite diverse sources. In this body of work particularly, the central painting, watching a rom-com after yoga, I was thinking about that painting sort of taking on a form like an Instagram feed or a Tumblr feed, and just kind of adopting that form where the logic of the images is not connected to narrative or sequence, but to this kind of process of selection or a keyword that might have produced this random section out of the millions of possible images that there are. The thing that compels me to paint is the idea that you can use painting to open these kind of contemplative spaces where people can actually think differently about things. It sort of invites you into an engagement that's outside of reality, but it can rub up against reality as well. Kind of remind people that things aren't necessarily as they're presented, that there is ambiguity and that there is mess. The unstretched nature of the canvas means it hangs, like it kind of flops and hangs in space in a more casual way, and the subtle air from the vents kind of impacts on their position in the space. So it's sort of like they have a different self-awareness in the space, though they have this kind of height and this scale, that they also have this sense that they could be rolled up and put away again, and that it's almost like they unfurl in this, like heraldry unfurls for a holiday or a festival or something, and then it all gets sort of rolled up and put away again. When I decide to work large, the works tend to be sort of at the limits of my body and what I can move around and handle in the studio. And I'm really interested in that, the fact that scale produces this kind of bodily relation with the work. But I'm also wary of the work reading as this sort of masterpiece, or, having that dominance of like a salon painting. And for that reason, I've always kind of taken these measures to soften the paintings in some way, often using a softer palette or a more subtle kind of line work, so the painting doesn't come across as this like assertion. The improvisation sort of comes into play when I begin a painting and begin a process and then look at it and go, that's not doing what I expected at all, and have to then decide what to do, which often involves taking risks with the work that could end in disaster. If you can get the work functioning after that point, then it has this complexity in it. These paintings have a front side and a back side, and it's quite obvious that, the front is the front, and that it's this more sort of privileged space, and it's coloured and it's primed and it has a surface, where the backs have these kind of sketchy, quickly done notes just in black acrylic paint. When I was producing these works, I would proliferate a lot of different source material and different possibilities, and I would move through different possible ways of resolving them, and a lot of that kind of ended up getting rejected or getting edited out of the front of the painting. I sort of feel like what gets taken away when you're making a painting is just as important as what remains. I feel like there's a reorientation towards an engagement with art history and history in a broader sense among a younger generation of painters, especially in Melbourne. An engagement with art history is a way of navigating the processes by which histories become solidified. To sort of locate that in images becomes a way to pick and pull that apart and start throwing it into question, which I feel is an absolutely crucial thing to be doing in an Australian context, where the way that our official histories have been constructed is, it disavows a whole lot of fundamental aspects of the conditions on which this country's founded. There was a time when painting was tethered to an idea of the representation of the truth, even though it probably never represented truth as such. Painting is this medium that's sort of loaded with this vestige of having once been attached to that idea of truth but no longer. It's kind of been through all these histories of being damned and declared dead several times, and it's sustained all of this baggage and all of this complexity that means as soon as you make a painting, even if it's just a single stroke on a surface, it's already loaded. It's already got this whole history that inheres in it, and I'm really kind of excited by that